Hello, Star Citizens, and welcome to a ship buyer's guide, kind of. Well, we'll see. It's going to be a buyer's guide, but it's really just for the first day. We are also going to be streaming later on today, answering questions and stuff that you have about IAE, but it's IAE day. I mean, it's IAE day one. We got Crusader Industries, we got Tumbril. I mean, it's about to be a good day. Don't even worry about it. As always, make sure that if you're not subscribed, you hit that subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, consider hitting that join button because, yeah, you get that 25% chance of winning whatever ship we're giving away, which I think this month is the Starlancer TAC. So that's a pretty good ship to be giving away. You know, strap in and we'll get to it. All right, so let's start with Crusader Industries. I think, actually, no. Let's start with Tumbril. We always start with Crusader. Let's start with Tumbril. Let's go Tumbril first. All right, so if you know me, then you know that I have a very specific amount of vehicles that I think people should purchase. But before we get into that, let's talk about IAE 2954. So new vehicles are expected. People are talking about this Paladin thing. I hadn't heard anything about it, but I'm very much so hyped to see whatever the heck that is, because it does look like it'll be a larger ship. But more so, I think the Intrepid is kind of going to be the big talk of the show, so to speak. And I have my opinions on it. I actually recorded a video earlier today with info runners. So if you're watching this one will be more like my long form takes, where on the info runner show I kind of did like short form takes because we give everybody equal speaking time on that. So this one is more so like I'm gonna be a little bit more long-winded than I was on that show, but very similar thing. And also because it's me, and it's my channel, I'm gonna put a little bit of stank on it, Anyway, yeah, this IAE, considering last year's IAE, I don't expect there to be a whole lot of crazy stuff in this one. I'm pretty sure we're just gonna get the one CCU thing a day. So I'm not really like super excited about IAE so much as I do have a bunch of ships that I need to buy now. So last IAE, I was like, I only really need one. And now I'm like, I think I need 7 or 8. So this is going to be one of the ones where I actually have to put my money down, But a lot of it's store credit. So we'll see how much actual money I have to spend. But yeah, let's get into it. Cyclone. So I do love the Cyclone. I just don't love the price. So if you could get it for cheaper than 55, maybe as a referral reward or something like that. The MT is the one I would get, so I wouldn't spend the real money on the Cyclone. If I'm spending real money, it would have to be the MT. The AA, it really kind of shouldn't exist, considering that the MT, look at the MT. Look at what this has right on top. And then this has these that have to come out, right? But with the MT, you have a gun. Plus those two. So I just don't get why I would get that one. I have reviews on all of these, but yeah, to be short, the Cyclone AA would make sense if the MT didn't exist, but it definitely wouldn't make sense at this price. $80? No. You should be getting a ship at $80. The MT is $75, and that has a third seat. It adds just comparing these two, right? This has 2 seats in the front, and you could have a third person as a gunner in the back, so it carries 3 people. Then it has the gun, which this doesn't have a gun, and then it has, I want to say, the same size missiles. I think this might have 1 or 2 more missiles, but I mean, this is the better all-arounder. Not to mention, it's a Cyclone. It's a full-on Cyclone. It's a little bit slower, I think, than the other variants, but it's not so much slower that you can't use it as a full-on Cyclone. The only thing is it doesn't fit in as many vehicles because of its height. So just be aware of that, and that might be what these kind of have against it, or in favor of it, because these can fit in a smaller vehicle. But if you're worried about that, you probably shouldn't be driving one of these anyway. You should probably be looking at a Steve or something like that. So there you have it. Cyclone RC, I think it'll have its heyday. I mean, obviously, if you're a racer, this is already the one that you want. But right now, I don't think it's quite where it needs to be. I would wait a little bit more deep into the vehicle balancing before I was to make a purchase on this one. The Cyclone RN, this is the only one that I think, weirdly enough, it's just so unique because it's recon and it's radar. So it's like, you just don't see that often in a vehicle. So if you really have that, you know, I could see, for instance, this one being used for the Valacar, right? Like imagine using that radar to kind of sense where the rumbles are coming from, and you're hunting that Valacar that we saw at CitizenCon, and you're like, oh, the last rumble came from, you know, 500 meters west or whatever. Then you could say, all right, I'm going over there, and then you're already in the vehicle, so you can disturb it and make it pop out of the ground, right? But not just that, like finding maybe some hidden cave networks, or finding or being able to sense troops before they can sense you. There's a lot of different use cases for this, so this is the only other one where I'm like, I see what you did there, but at the same time, I don't know why I would do that in a vehicle rather than just do that in a ship. So that's my kind of argument for, argument against. But yeah, if you got the Cyclone RN, I guess I can't say I'm mad at you, but I would also wonder why are you not just doing that in a ship? The Cyclone TR, this is the same thing. It has the same issue as the AA. Yeah, this is the AA. It has the same issue as this one, where the MT has the best of both worlds. So I'm not sure why I would get the TR. It does have a different weapon on it, but if I'm not mistaken, you can change the weapon on the MT anyway. So yeah, except this one's cheaper, so I'll give it credit for that. It is cheaper. It is cheaper than the MT and cheaper than the AA. Now this one. All right. So Execute cut me off when I was talking about the Nova tank because he's not a fan of buying vehicles, but I am not either. I am not a fan of buying vehicles, but you know I have my 5, and the MT is one, and the Nova is one. My Nova is the biggest one. It's probably tied with the Ursa Medevac, but that's for a different episode, right? So what I was gonna say, if you watched the episode already on the Info Runners and you saw where I got cut off and everything, it's not my show. So yeah, I was like, go ahead. I know I'm going to get, I got to say what I'm going to say. I'm going to go to my channel. I got it. But the Nova tank to me is a price consideration versus earning consideration thing. Let's say you make $40 an hour. I'm being very like, you know, giving here, right? Like most people don't make $40 an hour, but like, let's say you made $40 an hour just to keep it, you know, actually, I know, I think it would make more sense to do this in a more realistic way. So let's say you made $20 an hour. $20 an hour, and you wanted to purchase this ship. It would take you, out of the value of your effort and work, right? It would take you 6 hours to earn this. Let's say 6 hours after, if you earn this within 6 hours, then you spent less than that $20 an hour to earn this as far as your time. So do you consider your time more valuable or your money more valuable? Because that's really what the question is here, because I think the Nova tank is going to be behind some rep walls, and I do think you're going to have to grind to get it. I also think you're going to have to, it's not just going to be, you know, I go in, I do 5 missions, now I have a Nova tank. They're going to say, yeah, you can get a Nova tank, but you have to reach level 3 with the Mercenary Guild or something like that. Reaching level 3 with the Mercenary Guild, it might take 4 hours. It might take 24 hours. We don't know. But either way, you're going to have to put that gameplay in order to get it. Then, once you get the ship, and now that we know how this works, this is much easier to talk about. Once you do get the blueprint, now what? You have the blueprint. You don't have the ship, you have the blueprint. Because with military ships, as they said at CitizenCon, you'll have to build it. And because you have to build it, now you have to go do what? You have to go and get a fabricator or hire a fabricator, which adds to the cost. You have to build something in order to create this thing. Or maybe you just happen to have another ship that can create it already, like a Pioneer or a Starlancer BLD. But you could see my issue now, right? And then you have to wait for it to be built, and of course you have to get all the supplies necessary for it to be built. And how long is it going to take you to do that, right? You can start to see how the time sink is adding up. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying that if you have time, you should purchase this. I'm saying if you have the time, I totally get why you would earn a Nova in game. If you don't, or if the time is worth less than the 120, then I think that's where people should be considering buying the Nova tank. It's going to be rep walled. We know it's military. You may not necessarily be able to just buy one from a store. You'll have to build one. And once you factor in the amount of time it takes to get to the point where you can get the blueprint and get to the point where you can build this by collecting all of the things required to actually build the Nova tank, that's where I think you're probably spending 10 to 12 hours trying to make enough money in game to purchase a Nova tank, where when you work at your regular job, you make $20 an hour. So you actually save time. If you think time is money, the way I do, you save a little bit of time just purchasing the ship outright. And that's only my first reason. My second reason is the way ship things have changed, right? The way insurance has changed. Now, you tell me, are you going to put a transferable warranty on a Nova tank, or are you going to save that for your more expensive ships? Because most people, I would think, if you have a small fleet, I could 100% understand you putting a transferable warranty on the Nova tank. But if you have 10 plus ships and then you're just adding a tank to it, that's probably going to be the last place you want to put a transferable warranty, because you're going to want to more so protect your ships. So that's another thing. I don't know if in game I want to put all the effort into earning a transferable warranty on a Nova tank, and so this is kind of my argument here is the twofold thing, right? The time sink in order to earn one because of the rep wall, and the transferable warranties. You're just not, I can imagine me blowing this thing up all the time. And so having to keep paying and paying and paying to repurchase one because I don't have the insurance, then that would be a problem for me. So yeah, that's what I think about now that we kind of know where we're going with the insurance. I think the floodgates are open for people to purchase ships. But my final caveat, and then I'll move on to why I actually like the Nova tank, is if you're buying any vehicle, it should be after you've bought all the ships that you want. You should not be purchasing a vehicle unless you already have all of the ships that you want. You should be working towards getting those ships, because I think vehicles are the last thing people should buy in a space game. So when I say, these are 5 that anybody could buy, I'm not mad at you regardless of what time you buy them. But I do think the best strategy is I only want 7 ships. There's only 7 ships in the entire game that I like or I want. Obviously in the future there might be more, but right now, I got all 7 of the ships I like, and I really am looking at this tank, and I really like this tank, and I want that. That's when I think you should purchase the tank. Not, I got 3 ships and I want 4 more ships, but I'm going to buy a Nova tank right in the middle of that. So there you have it. That's my whole spiel on vehicles. I'm not going to do it again. There you have it. You got it on video. There it is. So why do I actually like the Nova tank? Well, because it's anti-air, anti-personnel, and anti-armor all in one little ship, right? And it's 3 passenger. You could fit more people on there, but it's 3 passenger, 3 roles. So it's a multi-crew vehicle. I think the amount of fun that people have on tanks has yet to be truly discovered. I've seen videos of people having fun on tanks, but when this thing is balanced and doing what it's supposed to do and moving how it's supposed to move, and Yeah, I think this thing is going to be one of the more fun ways to play Star Citizen, and I think people are underestimating its value just based on that. But if you're just talking utility, I don't need a Cyclone MT if I have one of these. Now, mind you, a Cyclone MT fits in a lot more vehicles, but I'm not. If you're at the stage that I'm telling you where you should buy this, you shouldn't be worried about what can carry a tank because you should already have something that can carry a tank. And if you don't, stop worrying about a tank and worry about getting something that can carry a tank, right? So, and that's my thing. When you get to a certain stage in the game, getting a Nova tank makes sense, but it doesn't make sense before you get to that stage. But yeah, it does negate most other combat vehicles. I don't really particularly need any other combat vehicles unless it's more based on speed and combat rather than just combat, because this is your combat vehicle. This is the one that people will run away from, I think, when it's all said and done and it's balanced. But yeah, I like the Nova tank. The Ranger CV, I think, I'm not sure why I would take a CV rather than taking a Dragonfly. And that's my biggest argument against the Ranger CV. You know, I can fit 2 people on my Dragonfly, plus I can get the cargo on there. So I don't know why I would take the Ranger CV. Now, mind you, it is a wheeled vehicle, so maybe in the future, anti-air will still have a chance at hitting hover vehicles. And so you'll need something with wheels in order to get past certain anti-air measures and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. We don't know enough about wheeled vehicles like this yet. So we'll have to wait and see. But my guess is it'll be very similar to the Tumbril Cyclone. The Ranger RC to me is the best of these because I think the Ranger RC is geared obviously towards racing, and I think that's where most people, like when I think of what I want to do in a Ranger, and I think of like these other variants, right? Do I want to do cargo in the Ranger? Do I want to do fighting in the Ranger where, you know, you shoot straight? Or do I want to just race it? And I keep coming back to racing. I'm not a huge fan of racing. If you've been watching this channel, you know I'm not a huge fan of racing. So I don't say this lightly when I say this is the only vehicle in the game that I want to buy just to do racing with, right? I'm not buying it, but I just, it's the only one that gives me that pull of, yeah, just because I want to race on a motorcycle in a video game. I think that's just a cool and fun thing to do. But I wouldn't necessarily want to carry cargo or, you know, shoot people in it, especially on motorcycles, unless the wheels turn in a certain way where they kind of do that crab walk thing where they can turn sideways, because otherwise you have to, like, in order to turn a motorcycle, you're pretty much, you're going to be shooting going straight forward, but to turn it, you have to like kind of turn, you have to be going at a certain speed, which makes the weapons less useful. So I don't know. I think it was kind of a weird choice, but at the same time, I get they were trying to go for variety. But the pricing is really good. So if you get any of these, you know, I don't think you should, but if you do get them, I'm not mad at you because they're so cheaply priced. So the Storm and the Storm AA, these are interesting because, and I said this in the video I did with Info Runners, are actually not meant to just be faster versions of a Nova tank or whatever. They are actually supposed to be kind of like ATV, the ATV version of the Nova tank, but one person, right? So it's like, it's supposed to be able to go over very difficult terrain like rocks and stuff. Like, I don't think this functionality is in yet, but the wheels are supposed to actually kind of, they're flat track wheels, right? Well, they're not flat track wheels, but there's 2 sets of track wheels. They're kind of like this, and it rolls along like this. Whereas they can fold up like this. If you're imagining my hands are the wheels, they're like this, and that's how you're going generally. But they're supposed to be able to fold up and then kind of like go over rocks and stuff like that. Don't worry, my hand puppet show is legendary. So if you didn't understand that, it had nothing to do with the quality of my hand puppetry, okay? You just got to work on your understanding of hand puppetry, okay? Anyway, the Storm is supposed to have that unique movement mechanism, but it doesn't have it yet, and I think that's why people are so down on it, because they are looking at it and saying it's just a worse Nova tank, and I could just spend $20, $30 more and get a Nova tank. So if you look at it from that standpoint, I think it's okay. It's also solo operated, whereas the tank, you can do certain things solo, but you're better off with the Storm if you really want that solo experience. So it is unique, but I just think it needs that movement mechanism working in order for it to really like deserve a spot. And it's the same thing for the AA. If I'm gonna pick between these two, I'd probably get the AA just because of its ability to like pepper people with so many missiles, even though they're kind of tiny. Still, yeah, I would probably just get the tank, you know. So I would me wanting to get the tank is what kind of keeps me from getting the Storms, if that makes any sense. Yep, and that is Tumbril. Let's see if they have anything. Nope, they don't have anything down here. They got this IAE gear stuff. So if you're wanting to collect all the t-shirts and stuff, they got it. And then they got the Tumbril Complete Pack, War Bond or not, 785. I mean, I don't know a whole lot of people who want to buy all the vehicles in the game, but if you want it, there it is. All right, let's get to Crusader. All right, so the Intrepid obviously is going to be its own thing. So I'll talk about it a little bit here. And obviously I let my, I did another video with Info Runners, and that'll be coming out about the Crusader Intrepid and some of my things I like and things I dislike about it. So check that out as well. But I'll give you just a very basic thing of it here. And of course I will review it very soon. So when you get to my review, you'll see all of the information on that one. But this is what we should talk about first. There is a M2, I think it's $35 discount that you get. Oh no, you gotta take 10 away from it, so it's $25. You get a $25 CCU. I always forget to include the cost of the actual CCU. So yeah, $25. You save $25 on an upgrade to the M2. Now, from what Lemming was telling me, this is not a common upgrade, but we did get it recently, so it's very possible that you already have this, but it is not common. So if you don't have it, or you're like, hey, maybe I know there's still some ships left that I want to get in the future, I would pick up a CCU to this just in case, like in the future, you need that last CCU and you don't want to be waiting for this to pop up again, especially if it only pops up like once or twice a year, whereas a lot of the other ones you might see 3 or 4 times a year. So yeah, and that's it. That's the only CCU or upgrade. I'm trying. Upgrade. It's the only upgrade for today. So let's talk about these Crusader ships. So these are kind of out of order, but I'll just go in the order that they are. The first one we have is the A1 Spirit. I think it is overpriced. I think the bombs on it are great, but we don't know enough about them to see if they will be great in the future. I also think with planetary shield tech and all this stuff, like everything's going to be shielded. We really need to know what is the difference between bombs like this and torpedoes. Why should I get a bomb like this instead of torpedoes? Because torpedoes work in space and in atmosphere, whereas the bombs only work in atmosphere. So yeah, that it's overpriced. I think this ship should be 150, no more than 175, but I do think it should be 150, and I think maybe the E1 should be the 175 one. But yeah, it's a solid ship if you really are into bombing, but outside of that, yeah, you probably should be getting one of the other variants. The A2. So the A2 is extremely expensive. It's extremely expensive. It's most people should not buy it type of ship. This is one of those ships that you need to either love the ship itself, as in you just love the entire aesthetic of the ship, or you have to really need whatever its utility is, right? So it can carry 216 SCU of cargo. It's what else? It's 216 SCU of cargo. I think it has 5 seats. It's either 4 or 5 seats for turrets, and it's got what, size 4 turrets, and then it's got the size 5 pilot controlled, right? And it drops bombs, the biggest bombs in the game, right? Or it can drop like metric ton of carpet bombs as well. So do you need that? You know, a lot of people don't need that. You know, if you just need the bomb dropping, you could probably get the A1. I do think that's overpriced as well, but it's not as overpriced as the A2. If you just need to, if you just want the turrets, you can get the Hercules, or you know, you can get the TAC. You can get, there's, I mean, depends on what size turrets you want. But yeah, there's a lot of options for turrets, and you're not saving much money with the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead's what, $25 cheaper. So you know, if you just want turrets, there's other ships that have turrets. You can get, I mean, you can get the Redeemer. You know, that's more, it's leaning more towards like taking pilot control away and giving that to the turret gunners and stuff. But yeah, so this is one of those luxury ships. Most people shouldn't buy it, but if you bought it, it's probably because you need it. I hope you didn't buy this instead of a Polaris though, because a Polaris is better, straight up. So if you're in the mood for buying $750 ships, make sure that you got a Polaris before you got this. Now, the price on the Polaris might go up, so I don't know. We haven't got to RSI day yet, but yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts on the A2. It's really, I really think it's a good ship. I don't like the cockpit area. I don't like that it has the mailbox slot, but at the same time, I don't particularly think that drops it all the way down. Like I take a point off for it, but that's about it. Like in all other areas, it's pretty much doing what it's supposed to do. I do think there is some wasted space at the top. When you get to the very top deck, I do think there's a lot of wasted space in that interior room. That's right when you step out of the elevator. But yeah. Even with that though, I really like the A2. I just really dislike the price. So if you're gonna get this one, make sure you're CCUing like crazy to get to it. The Ares Inferno and the Ares Ion, both extremely overpriced, and that's my biggest problem with them, is that they're overpriced. My second biggest problem with them is that they need more, because size 7s just won't be the capital ship killers. I was saying, you know, in the Info Runners video, I think they should have size 8s. You know, or you got to balance size 7s to be better. And size 8s are just, like size 8s, I think we all know, I think we are all at a point where we're like, size 8s are really gonna be the first weapon in the capital ship killer conversation, right? If you have size 7s, you can make a dent, don't get me wrong, but we're not talking about killing, we're more talking about making a dent. Whereas size 8s, you could take out a capital ship with size 8s. And I think the same is going to go for size 9s, 10s, all the way up to 12, right? But yeah, I think the Ares Ion and the Ares Inferno are not cheap enough to be what they are, and they're not maneuverable enough to be what they are, and the gun's not big enough to be what it is. So the gun, if it was a size 8, you could justify how slow and lumbering this thing is, but it's not a size 8. So it's a size 7, which is still great, don't get me wrong, but this thing don't have any other missiles, it doesn't have any other torpedoes, it doesn't have any other weapons. So why? Why am I taking this out instead of something else that has all those other things? Or, you know, there's better flying ships that have torpedoes. So, and multiple of those, which are going to do much more damage to a capital ship. So that's the question. Why would I bring these out? And it's really as a team and as a fleet, because you're going to need at least 4 of these to really put a dent in anything. And you should have 2 of them be Ions and 2 of them be Infernos, because the Ions are going to melt the shield, and then the Inferno is going to melt everything underneath the shield. So you'd be good to go that way. All right, the C1 Spirit, I think this is one of the better ships that I think most people should get, but they probably are looking above it or below it. The C1 Spirit is an excellent ship. Nice little amount of cargo. It has a very cool tractor beam. A lot of doors, but it's a decent combat ship. It's a nice all-arounder at this stage. Now, I do think the Cutlass Black is also a really good all-arounder. So you really got to just, what aesthetic do you like more? And also the the secondary turret in that Cutlass Black, makes that one also very impressive to a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's a really good ship. I think anybody who owns one will tell you it's probably going to stay in their fleet for a long time because they just like it that much. And we all thought the Zeus was going to like dethrone it, but that wasn't the case. So there you have it. The C2. Now the C2 I think used to be the bee's knees, but as time has gone on, it has not become the bee's knees. But that's because people were using it for something it wasn't really meant to be used for. It is a vehicle transport ship. It has never been a cargo ship. We put cargo on it, but that's a secondary purpose, not its primary purpose. So if you just put cargo on this thing and you're upset because now we got the ironclad and things like that, you're going to continue to be upset because what we're supposed to have right here is a vehicle ship. It's supposed to just transfer vehicles. That's why it doesn't have the tractor beam. And they said as much. So yes, I get your frustration of it not having a tractor beam. I get your frustration of it, having a slightly weird layout to it. But the Hercules C2 was mostly supposed to transport vehicles. And if you look at it that way, it's doing what it's supposed to do, but that just makes it a less interesting ship. So the E1 Spirit. So this is my favorite of the Spirit series. I think this is one of the ones that's actually going to take the series over the top into one of my favorite series of ships. But it's working with the A1 in its company as its little brother, so it might not. So we'll see. The E1 would have to, as it says here, raise the bar in order for the Spirit series to stay up there as one of my favorite series of ships. But at the same time, we don't know pretty much anything about it. We know it has executive transport. We know there's multiple passenger seats for it, and that's pretty much it. We have to wait until we get more about transport and passenger gameplay. And that's straight up. But I do like the price of it. I think the price is appropriate. The Genesis Starliner. I remember having to pick one of these up because this is how I'm going to get all my people to my base. And a lot of people are underestimating how important that little part is going to be. You're going to need to get people to all these bases that you're building. Obviously, some people can get there themselves, but NPCs most likely not. So I do think this will be geared more towards collecting NPCs, not necessarily collecting players, because players have ships and players are most likely going to want to ride their own ship unless there's like a party on board the Genesis or something like that. So I can imagine there being VIP customers, like a first class area, so on and so forth, or just all first class. So depends on how you want to set yours up. I can imagine this being one of the ships where it's made for you to change around the interior. So yeah, I think that'll be pretty cool. Then we have the Intrepid. I won't talk too much about it. Size 4 gun on the front, 8 SCU cargo in the back that drops down the bottom, but it is covered, so you can't just keep stacking stuff on it. And then it has a nice little interior with a bed. Yeah, and it has I think it has a little kitchenette. So it's a pretty good ship until you look at the price. It's $65. It should have been $50. You got to remember, this isn't the stationary price. This is the price, the entry level price, and it is a starter ship. Here's the issue: when you can start to compare it to other starter ships that can haul stuff or fight, this starts to break apart really quickly at the $65 price range. You could justify it if it was $50, $55, but you can't justify it at $65. And that's my biggest issue with it, is that it's $65. It probably should have been $55. And then you could justify the $10 difference between this and all the other ships I mentioned, the 315P and the Avenger Titan. So yeah, that's my first take on it, so to speak. The M2, this ship, it used to be my favorite of the three as far as like the price. But now that the Ironclad Assault exists, I'm just wondering why this still does. It does have its place. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make you M2 lovers upset out there. I do understand it does have utility. I just think it needed one more turret to really be the middle spot between the C2 and the A2. I think it needed at least 2 turrets on the bottom, and the fact that it doesn't have that is kind of weird to me. But I like the ship. I like how much cargo it can carry. I like that it's got a little bit better armor. But yeah, I just think the Ironclad Assault is kind of taking its limelight right now. But we'll see. We'll see when the Ironclad Assault launches if it actually stands up to the M2, because I do think the M2 will be faster. Speaking of fast, the Mercury Star Runner. I love this when it was 225. Now I just like it at 260. The price went up, and that's what kind of limits it for me. But data running and cargo, I think those will end up going hand in hand in the future. So yeah, I think the Mercury has been talked about to death, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. Just make sure that if you're getting a Mercury, you're not just getting it because you think it's pretty. Get it because you actually want to use it for something, because I feel like the people who get it just because it's pretty might end up being a little sad later. So there you have it. This is the A1 Spirit, which is the one we talked with. So we are all the way done. That's it. That's all of Tumbril. That's all of Crusader Industries. I will make some more content later, and I will definitely be hopping on to live stream later just to get your thoughts on the first day of CitizenCon, or not CitizenCon, of IAE. So yeah, just let me know what you think in the comments down below. And which one of these is your favorite? You know, I definitely have mine. I think it's kind of obvious. But I am picking up some ships, so I'm not just saying this stuff to you folks. I am putting my money where my mouth is. So most of the ships that I tell you that I think are worth buying, I own them, or I will be very soon. So keep playing that CCU game, keep upgrading, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for spending your time with us. Peace.